and good morning. Today we're talking about cognitive distortions and unhelpful thinking styles. So there's a list of them, and I'm just going to flip through quickly because this is going to be a very short video. I'm only talking about 2 things on the list at a time. So there's mental filtering, jumping to conclusions, personalization, catastrophizing, black and white thinking, shoulding and musting, labeling, overgeneralization, and disqualifying or ignoring the positive. So these are, this is a short list of examples of unhealthy thinking styles. What we're trying to do when we're going into therapy and examining our own thought processes and our own communication and our own thinking, we're looking at examining the evidence. And one of the best descriptors that I've heard is called checking the evidence for your beliefs. And that's, if this thought was put on trial, what evidence would the defense present? What facts support the thought being true? So that's one side. And then the second step of that is, what evidence would the prosecution present? And that's presenting against. So what information works against the thought or shows that it isn't true all of the time? It doesn't mean that it's not true some of the time, but it's not true all of the time. So when we're challenging those unhealthy thinking styles, we want to check the evidence. And so if we were in a court, or if this idea or thinking was being investigated, what would stand for your thinking and what would stand against it? So a couple of the thinking styles, well, the 2 that I'm talking about today, but I gave you a list of unhealthy thinking styles or unproductive thinking styles. But the 2 that I'm going to focus on are mental filter and jumping to conclusions today. Okay, so mental filtering. Am I seeing the whole picture, or am I looking at it through a lens that is more comfortable for me, or is more acceptable or understandable? So when we're considering the whole picture, we're going to ask ourselves, am I taking in all of the information? Am I receiving and considering all of the information that is important for making a decision about this issue? And then what else is going on that I'm not considering? Because we are not all-knowing. We don't know everything that's happening. So another person might be coming to an event or a situation with you, seeing an entirely different list of factors than you do, but you're only considering your own and not asking them. Maybe you don't have the ability to. But when we're only considering our own thoughts, opinions, what we see through our filters, we're really not examining the evidence. We're really not taking all of the information that we need to into account, and that's both sides. And usually it's not just both sides, like 2 sides. There's usually, besides the common ground, there are all kinds of colors in between. There's a spectrum, right? Okay. What else is going on that I'm ignoring or choosing not to see? Many times when we have a difficult conversation or a situation with somebody, we're not going to be looking for things from their perspective. So we're going to miss a number of things that are important for us to consider. And if we were in their shoes, it would be important that these things were considered for us. So think about that. If you were in the other person's shoes, how would it look from that side? And then the second unhealthy thinking is jumping to conclusions. And what does that look like? We're making assumptions. And feelings are not facts. Just because we feel something does not make it truth. It may be partial truth. It may be behaviors or some situation that, because when this happens, we feel this way, but it doesn't even make the feeling true. It just means that it feels that way. So if we're jumping to conclusions, we can ask ourselves, how do I know this? My favorite statement is, what evidence do I have of this thinking? And sometimes it really upsets people when I say to them, what evidence do we have of this, that this is truth, right? That this is fact? Because the automatic assumption when you hear that is, what, I'm lying to you? Or I'm not able to see, like for myself, and put two and two together? That's not it at all. You may not be lying at all. You may be telling the complete truth from your perspective. It's also missing components so that you can't have an educated or informed opinion because you don't have all of that information. So you're making an assumption, and that is forming your opinion, an uneducated or uninformed opinion, because it's missing that information. Not because you're not able to put two and two together, but you don't have two to put together with two. You have one and three maybe, right? Okay. You have 1 and 5 maybe. It still doesn't equal 4. Okay. So in jumping to conclusions, what are some alternative explanations for this situation? So yesterday we looked at a driving scenario that should have been pretty safe for most people. And when we're looking at what other explanations do I have for this? Well, driver A, who was slow and meandering on a nice, beautiful Sunday, didn't have awareness of what was going on in driver B's car or the crisis situation they were in. So they could have said to themselves, rather than saying, that guy is such a jerk, what a bully, I feel bullied, it ruined my whole day, he could have said to himself, wow, there must be some emergency or crisis situation that this guy needs to get to. I'm just going to back off and get out of his way. That would have removed the situation from your worry load or my worry load. While I'm driving, I'm not thinking about what a bully this guy is and why do people bully each other, and bullying is terrible, and spinning myself or sort of walking myself down the spiral. You're actually changing your thinking so that you're walking yourself back up that spiral by thinking about all of the different scenarios it could be. It could be that maybe they're an emergency worker and have to get to a site very quickly, though they should have sirens or whatever, flashing lights. Maybe they don't have that. Maybe they have a crisis or emergency situation. There's a child choking in the car, like the description yesterday. Maybe they're, the passenger's having a heart attack. Maybe it's, maybe you have to get to the airport because somebody's passport has been left at home, and if they don't catch this flight, they're not going to get to see their dying parent. There's all kinds of scenarios that you can think, okay, that's worst case thinking. No, these are normal everyday situations that people have to deal with all the time, but we don't. Thankfully, we're not dealing with those situations. And maybe on that day of the slow meander, that individual in car A wasn't thinking about that either. But car A also wasn't thinking about all of car B's possible situations. So it's easier to walk ourselves down that negative spiral into the stuck thinking from the unhealthy patterns. So the second question, what are some alternative explanations, can be answered with a little bit of imagination. So put yourself in the other person's shoes. Think about what are all of the different scenarios that you might be experiencing or they might be experiencing. Not only does this help you walk yourself out of that downward spiral, but it distracts you off of that immediate feeling. So you're not building those neural pathways of negativity and thinking the way you were. And then the third question we can ask ourselves is, if I was feeling differently, would I be thinking differently? Maybe you're feeling rotten today, and it's easier to think negatively when we're feeling rotten. Maybe you're feeling wonderful, but you're a little hungry or tired, still feeling good, but not quite thinking patiently or compassionately. Maybe it's been, you just got off of a night shift and you're exhausted and your judgment and your thinking is quite clouded. So we never know, but if you were feeling differently, would you be thinking differently? And there are times where, for instance, as parents, we're exhausted. We get home from work, all the kids want to do is see us and interact, and they're extremely loud, they're hyper, they're excited, and we're barking at them or growling because we're so tired, and the noise is crazy, and the chores maybe didn't get done, but they've got this test to show you and they're super excited, or it's Mother's Day and they got you something for Mother's Day and you're going to be working on Mother's Day, so they want to give it to you now and they're really excited. And instead of patiently, lovingly saying, buddy, I totally appreciate it. Give me 5 minutes to have a nice cup of tea or coffee, and then I can totally check in again. But I really need some downtime right now. Well, that's a lot different than, will you just be quiet and give me a minute to settle in? We've all had those moments as parents, right? But if I was feeling differently and not so tired, my response would have been completely different. Well, it's the same in many different situations. So I'll leave it there, thinking about those two examples. Next video is going to be personalization and catastrophizing. So those are, I need a little bit of time to jump into them. So it's probably going to be about the same length of time in the video for these describing ones. But thank you for spending that almost 11 minutes, 12 minutes with me. I really appreciate you taking that time out of your day, and I hope that these videos are giving you something that are supportive of, are helpful in your healing journey. All right. I'll see you soon and have a great day.